Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of HBHA Lore. I'm your host, Mike Margulies, where each episode I sit down with a different person connected to HBHA's past or present. Today, I am delighted to be joined by someone who has been a part of HBHA for a long time in many capacities. As a student, as a parent, as a board member, she is a graduate of the class of 1997. Welcome to HBHA Lore, Lara Krigel Pabst.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, Mike.
I'm thrilled to have you, Lara. So I've had the joy of knowing you for a while because I have had the pleasure of teaching your three children, Nora and Harry and Reese, all at HBHA at various times for various classes. And as I said, you've been a part of HBHA for a long time. So let's start though with what you're doing professionally and what you've been doing since that time. And in 2 years from now, you'll be celebrating your 30-year class reunion anniversary celebration of graduating from HBHA in 1997. So tell us a bit about what you do now.
Sure. I am an attorney here in Kansas City, and I do employment law, and I own my own law firm, Krigel, Nugent, and Moore. So I have two partners, and we have 13 attorneys, 7 or 8 staff. We're on the plaza. So yeah.
That sounds very exciting. What can you talk a little bit more about employment law, about the types of things that you might deal with on a day-to-day or case-by-case basis?
Sure, sure. So this is my particular practice. It's a little different from others, I think, in that it's a little more varied than a lot of people do when they practice employment law. So I represent plaintiffs in discrimination cases. I also, from time to time, will represent a defendant in a discrimination case, and that's usually where it's like a corporate client, like a firm client has gotten sued, and usually it's like a local nonprofit or something like that, somebody who the firm has worked with for a long time. I time to time do counseling. So if an organization that we represent has a performance problem or has a kind of problem employee, will help decide what to do, and if like a separation agreement needs to be offered, and if we need to sever that tie. And then I also do investigations, and it's super fun. The investigations are really fun. So that's when I represent either a really big company or a municipality or an educational institution, and they have some sort of issue that comes up that's sensitive that maybe HR can't investigate, or if HR were to investigate, it wouldn't look like it was unbiased. And so they'll bring in a neutral third party to come in and determine, and not necessarily determine, but oftentimes make a recommendation as to whether a policy or the law has been violated. So I get to come in and like interview all the parties and look at the documentation and kind of decide what happened. I sort of surmise from my conversations and from all the evidence what happened, and then write up a report and say, this is what I think happened, and either make a recommendation or say, yes, I think a policy or law has been violated.
Sounds like a lot of having a hand in a lot of different pots, right? And doing a lot of different things with a lot of different types of companies and organizations. I imagine that when you started practicing law, you did not originally begin by having your own law firm. What was kind of the process like of how you began your legal career to eventually starting your own firm?
So good question. So I, straight out of law school, went to work for kind of a big firm called Spencer Fane here in town. It's huge now. It was not as big when I worked there, but it was still quite large. And I worked there for 3 years. It was great. I did only defense work, only employment defense and litigation. I personally did not like having that many bosses. I wasn't so great at having people tell me what to do all the time. So I then went to go work after 3 years, I went to work for my aunt and uncle at Krigel and Krigel. I worked there before law school as a receptionist first, and then as like I was doing paralegal work for maybe a year and a half before going to law school. It's why I decided to go to law school. When I had moved back to Kansas City in 2004 with my now husband, Ben, I didn't know what I wanted to do at all. I thought maybe I would go into museum education. I'd always loved art museums and history, and was kind of exploring that. And I had some informational interviews about that, and I just didn't kind of like what the recommendation was, that I should go get a master's in education. And I was like, oh, that's not exactly what I want to do. I mean, my husband's a teacher, so I love teachers, but I'm not patient enough to be a teacher.
Yes, that's a key trait that's needed.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And so I was like, well, I don't think that's the way I should go. I'm more interested in the art history side of it. But in the meantime, my aunt and uncle needed a receptionist. So they're like, well, while you're figuring out, come help us out and you'll earn some money. Our wedding was going on right that, like, this is right before we got married. And so like I had all these appointments. They were super flexible with my schedule. I couldn't have gotten anybody else to be that flexible with me. So that's what I did. And then started doing legal work on the side. And my uncle was like, all right, you have 2 years before I'm going to fire you,
Oh,
or
wow.
you have to go to law school. Like, you're either going to go to law school or you're going to go figure out something else. Like, because he didn't want me to get stuck. And I wouldn't have gotten stuck. I'm motivated enough. I understand why he did it. But he basically said, yeah, you're fired within this amount of time. And so,
Family spirit.
right? Yeah. And that's like a
We're
little,
ready to make it Kriegel, Kriegel, and Kriegel.
right, right. So that how that came around. So I went to law school, and then, as I said, went to work for Spencer Payne for 3 years, then went and worked as an attorney for Kriegel and Kriegel. And the whole time, Sandy, Arlene, and I had been talking about succession. And, the fact they wanted me to take over when they were like, nearing the end of their careers. And then I found a person I wanted to be a partner with. He brought in one other person. And in 2021, which was 8 years after I went to work for Kriegel and Kriegel, we bought Kriegel and Kriegel, and then 3 years later changed the name.
Okay.
So it's actually just a kind of a new iteration, I guess, of Kriegel and Kriegel. And Kriegel and Kriegel has been around since, I think, 1979.
Wow. Okay. So it started as a family business, and has grown and expanded and changed since there. I know that you are also really involved in a lot of other organizations around town, especially a lot of Jewish organizations. I know that you're a part of the board of HBHA, and I think you also serve on some boards of some other organizations around town. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the work you've done with some of those various organizations in Kansas City, especially in the Jewish community?
Sure, sure. So I am no longer on the board of JFS, Jewish Family Services, but I was for a really long time. I started as a committee member in 2013. A year later was brought on the board. What served on the board from 2014 to like a month ago. So yeah, like I'm now officially for the first time not on the board for the first time in a long time, but kind of rose my way up and was president, and then past president. I was president for 2 years, past president for 2 years, and then rolled off the board. So I guess became president sometime in 2021 is my guess.
And so, what were some of the things you were involved with during your time? So, it's about more than 10 years on the Jewish Family Services Board.
Yeah.
So what were some of the things that you did as part of your time there?
I mean, the board accomplished a lot. I can't take credit for really most of it, but I mean,
Or
that
what did JFS as a whole would you say accomplished during your
yeah,
time?
I mean,
With your role that you were playing a part of it as a board member.
Sure, sure. But the biggest thing I think is acquiring the Brookside building, and opening a whole new beautiful building in Brookside. I mean, and that's now I don't know if I would call it the main pantry, but it's this big beautiful pantry, and it was built to be a pantry. And so, there aren't some of the challenges of like the physical space of the pantry at the J. But it's this big, beautiful, it's this fantastic building. And that was probably one of the biggest things that we did. But also, during that time, I mean, I was on the board when COVID hit first, and that was just a really scary moment for a lot of our clients and a lot of people who became our clients during that time because they lost their jobs and they needed help with food and they needed help with, utility payments and things like that. And so during that time, JFS really expanded its services, and really adjusted very quickly to COVID, and having to offer expanded services. It was just sort of an all hands on deck from JFS's point of view. And then conversely, when things got better, we had to sort of contract and adjust to that because we then had fewer clients, we had fewer donations, like people just didn't get people when they were at home and getting paid and being paid to work from home, they couldn't go out to dinner, they couldn't go to the movies, they had more income, they had more disposable income, some people, than others, and they donated accordingly. I think this is my experience. I think JFS experienced, more giving at that time, and that contracted, understandably, when COVID kind of went away and things kind of went back to normal. And so then JFS had to contract a little bit. We just had to adjust to what our services looked like going forward. So that happened. And then also our longtime CEO, Don Goldman, who's fantastic, retired. And it was after 16 years, he deserved to retire. And then we had to go through actually 2 CEO searches and an interim. So that was interesting. And right now, JFS has a fantastic CEO, very happy. But it's a big adjustment for an entity to lose a longtime beloved leader and then to have to sort of adjust to new people being in charge. So
yeah, that's a lot of changes to be a part of in the 10-year period, both like the huge global shift with COVID, the leadership changes, the change in venue. I mean, that's a lot of things to be a part of. Are there any, and I will talk about the HBHA side of things that I know you're very involved with as well. Aside from HBHA and JFS, are there other organizations around town that you're a part of, either in a board member capacity or just involved with in other ways as well?
I'm also on the board for Jewish Community Foundation.
Okay.
So,
and what do they do? I know a lot of people know about there's a lot of different Jewish services around town. I think
sure.
most listeners are probably pretty familiar with JFS. They might not know really what the Jewish Community Foundation does. So what does that do and what was kind of your role within there?
So the Jewish Community Foundation, its purpose is really to encourage philanthropy in Kansas City and among the Jewish community specifically. I mean, it's not just for Jewish people, but I think the majority of its clients are Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
And so like if you want to open what's called a donor advised fund, you could do it at the Jewish Community Foundation. And that's basically where you have a lump of money. Let's say you have $1,000 or $5,000, and you're like, I know I want to use this chunk of money to donate to charity, but I don't know what exactly I want to do with it yet, or I do, and I just want to have it in this donor advised fund. You can put it in the donor advised fund. It's all tax deductible right then, or I can't give tax advice, but
Yeah.
it's all considered a donation right then. And then you have to use it to donate to 501c3s. And it sits in the account and it sometimes grows interest with the Jewish Community Foundation. And then you can go on Jewish Community Foundation's website and make recommendations as to how to grant that money. And they, as long as it's 501c3, will do so. So that's how I give to HBHA, for example, is I will hop on Jewish Community Foundation's website and say, I want to give this much money to HBHA, and they kind of like do the transaction. It also, what's great about it is they have a programming and staff to kind of help you decide on your charitable priorities. So Beatrice Fine, who is also an HBHA parent, longtime HBHA parent, works there, and she actually works with like my family and not just Ben and me and our kids, but like my parents and my brothers, to help us as a family make donations together and kind of come up with, we will tell her, here's what we're interested in, and she'll make suggestions as here's some places that you might not have heard of, and here's some exciting things going on around Kansas City, I have a brother, Ari lives in Chicago, and she'll make recommendations for that. And then beyond that, Jewish Community Foundation also um, grants money from its legacy fund, and for example, gives money to HBHA for I think what we usually fund is scholarship
Mhm.
money, scholarship fund. Um, and so we do all sorts of things. What I love about the Jewish Community Foundation is, I mean, the staff is fantastic. Josh Stein, by the way, just another plug for HBHA. Josh Stein is the CEO, executive director of Jewish Community Foundation. I don't think he graduated from HBHA, but he attended for a very long time, and so did his siblings. And so he's come back to Kansas City and is now leading it. Is doing a fantastic job. So another place that's sort of, being led by products of HBHA, which is awesome.
What a natural plug. It's like this is why I don't need to run ads during HBHA Lore, because the guests do the advertising for me and for the school, which is
You're
great.
welcome.
So
Yeah.
um that's a lot of time and energy that you're donating to a lot of organizations around town, which is amazing. I'm curious, just from your perspective, like, um, why do you choose to spend so much of your time and energy on these boards and involved in these different organizations? And as someone who's done it for a really long time, some of these you've been involved with for over a decade. Um, what do you get out of it, or why do you feel like it's a really important use and meaningful use of your time beyond all the time you're spending doing your career stuff?
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of things. Like, I mean, number one, I think there have been studies that have shown that people get a lot of gratification from donating their time or from, volunteering, that it's a feel good, that it's not just truly altruistic, that of course I want to help, and I want to, if my particular skill set or something in my brain is able to help, then I want to do that just because it's helpful, but also it makes me feel good. And then I would, be remiss if I didn't mention that when I first started working at Kriegel and Kriegel, I don't think that it's any coincidence that my volunteering for organizations coincided with me starting at Kriegel and Kriegel, because particularly my uncle Sandy encouraged me um, to get involved in whatever I wanted to get involved in. And like I was, I wrote it on my timesheet. You don't get paid for like what's on your timesheet, but just to let him know like how I was spending my time. But he was like, this is a valid use of your time for work purposes. I mean, especially at the beginning of my career, it helped me meet people. It helped me become known. I mean, not to be kind of crass about it, but as an attorney, to be able to bring in clients, people have to know you, and then they have to understand that like you're smart and attentive and thoughtful and hardworking. And if they see that, then they might hire you, or they might think of you when they have a problem. And that can be a good way to get business, especially when you're newer in your career. So that's like sort of the crass side of it, but it is a practical side of it that it was good for my career. And at this point, like it's that's certainly like, I think that I know enough people now that it's not at all the reason I do it, but at this point I just see it as a part of my job.
Yeah, it's become ingrained in who you are and what you do, and
Yeah.
it's very cool that you're able to see the transformation and the impact that these different organizations are having over this kind of long period of time.
Yeah.
Um, I also see, when I was just browsing a little bit about you before we started talking, that you were involved in a very recent event here in Kansas City called Women of Strength, and that you were
Oh,
honoree there as well. I don't know a lot about that event. Can you tell me a little bit about what that event was, and maybe the role that you played in that event?
sure. I mean, really the only role that I played in it is I was honored. I was named as one of the women of strength, and there were four others.
Women of Strength? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't do anything except for show up, and I said yes and I showed up.
Well, that's doing stuff. So what was the event like? What was it meant to celebrate? Just women in the professional community in Kansas City? Was it a Jewish event in particular?
It was put on by Jewish Federation, so definitely a Jewish event. And I think the honorees were people who were involved in the community. And I think
Fitting.
I think most, not all, like work professionally also in the Jewish community or have, but really it was all about community involvement. Um,
Well,
so
I'd say that you have done a lot of planning. It sounds like, and organizing from the other things. So even if you didn't plan that event, the honor was well deserved.
thank you.
And so
Right.
congratulations on that. Um,
Thank
you did mention that before you pursued law as your career, you were interested in some other subjects
you.
like perhaps education, art history. So going back before you got your law degree, when you were in undergrad, I'm curious a bit about that. Did you study one of those topics? Where did you go for your undergrad degree, and what did you focus on there? And if there's any particular highlights from your undergrad experience, definitely feel free to share one or two of those here as well.
Sure, sure. So I went to Northwestern, and just absolutely loved it. I met Ben there. Um, I mean, what more can I say? You know,
Right there.
yeah, right. So worth it right there. I majored in history and specifically American history, but my particular focus ended up being, this is crazy, but post World War II American history. So very recent and a lot of like history of gay history and the history of AIDS.
Okay.
And that was basically because I loved this one professor. His name was Lane Fenrich. He was amazing. He was like this amazing lecturer and so smart. And I took every class that he taught. I just what is Professor Fenrich teaching? I am going to take
There.
that. And that ended up being like my focus. And like I credit him. I don't know that this is like totally true, but like it was just and I'll my only caveat is I think I really learned how to think at the academy, and like particularly like Mrs. Leff, Phyllis Leff was my history teacher there. She was why I was a history major in college. She also taught me how to think, but I think Lane Fenrich really taught me how to think and how to analyze and how to think critically in the moment about, you know, the information that you were getting. And he was just amazing. And so I did that, and then I had a minor in gender studies.
Okay.
And also it was just because I wanted to take those classes. And then I ended up, you know, I wasn't like, I didn't really care about having a minor, but I feel like, you know, sometimes senior year, I was like counting out my credits. I was like, I think I have enough for a minor, you know? So just took what I was interested in. It was really just like exploring what I found that I was curious about.
I would imagine, based off what you said, your kind of history focus was that there were probably a lot of legal issues and disputes also that came up about, you were talking about like gay history and issues with
Yeah,
AIDS after World War II, that I imagine that some of those things might have also then come into bear when you were studying the law, just in terms of legal issues, disputes, things that were happening around that topic afterwards.
totally.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that like the through line there, and this extends to HBHA, was an interest in social justice
Mm-hmm.
and an interest in what happens when you discriminate against people. And I think that totally has to do with being taught about the Holocaust and World War II from a very young age, and just having it sort of be ingrained in you that this thing was very important. It's very important that we never let it happen again. And this is how it happened.
Yeah.
And learning about that, you know, at first from the academy, and in particular March of the Living, which, you know, the current iteration is the heritage trip.
Mm-hmm.
But those were really important, I think, in I guess just setting priorities for me, and like what was important in my life and what the kinds of things I wanted to focus on just in life in general. And that was why I think the kind of pull to history and the pull to um World War II and after, and civil rights movement, and the history of, you know, gay history and AIDS and all, you know, there's an obvious through line there. And then that extends to wanting to do employment law because it deals with discrimination. Um, and, you know, and that's what I do today. I think about it every day
Yeah.
because that's what I mean, even though I do all these other things, I would say most of my practice is plaintiff's work, is representing people who have been discriminated against at work. And so, you know, not learning, but like exploring those problems and those issues and seeing how they come up now.
Yeah, I mean, when you mentioned it, the first thing that jumped into my mind, because my brain functions through thinking about movies, is the movie Philadelphia with Tom Hanks, which is
Oh,
right about a guy who is um,
yeah.
filing wrongful termination suit because of being fired from his job due to having AIDS.
Yeah.
So that's just the kind of the first thing that popped into my mind when you mentioned that. All right, so we're slowly moving backwards in time. You know, we started with where you were here now, what you're up to. We rewound back to your undergrad days, but now I think let's shift a little bit more towards your actual time at HBHA. And
Woo!
yeah, I know you gotta adjust the memory here to remember. So you graduated in 1997. Did you go for your entirety of your K through 12 education, or did you join later on?
I started in kindergarten
Okay.
and then left for seventh and eighth grade
Okay.
and came back freshman year,
All right. So
which is weird, is so weird. And here's the thing about HBHA back then, a lot of people would leave for high school.
mhm.
And so it was, I think my parents went and I went into it thinking, well, I won't go to high school here because my class will fall apart and it will be so small. But my class didn't.
There you go.
And so I did leave for seventh and eighth grade. I went to Leewood Middle and I had a good time seventh grade. And then eighth grade, I just didn't. I just was like, started, I was always still friends with my HBHA friends, but I found that I really wanted to hang out with them and didn't like what the kids who I was friends with at Leewood Middle, what they started getting into in eighth grade. I was not ready for those
Yeah.
things and decided to go back and my class stayed together and I had a great class.
Do you remember how
So
many were in your graduating class?
14.
Okay, it's good. That's a good number there.
It was the biggest at that time. I
Mhm.
know the other subsequent classes, which is good, were bigger,
Mhm.
but at the time it was the biggest, and that just shows that, historically that the classes didn't stay together um until around that time when they
Yeah.
started getting bigger and bigger.
And you
So
said you were, particularly close with your class. You had a great crew there. Any just when you're thinking back, any stories that immediately pop to mind of like, oh, that are, maybe some are too wild to share on HBHA
I was
lore.
gonna say, I don't know that I can share them,
I'm
Micah.
sure there are some that are fitting for the podcast audience about just when you think back to it. It could be a specific event or thing you guys did together, or just something just when you think about your class dynamic, just kind of the way that it feels, or that you recall it. You're like, which things work for what we did as a crew here.
Um,
It can be tough. Yeah.
so I don't know. I mean, I can come up with like a million little inside jokes that wouldn't be funny and wouldn't be interesting to anyone else.
You just rattle off inside jokes for 15 minutes, and it's like three people
Probably,
cackling and being like, "Oh, Lara, that was hilarious in 10th grade."
yeah, yeah. And like everybody else would be like, Micah, this is the worst podcast you've ever put together. Like, what were you thinking?
No, but they would be so
Yeah.
impressed with all the stuff we covered in the first half.
Okay. Fair
Um,
enough.
but in all seriousness, I think that's a common thread is when I talk to people is, there are they're so close with their class sometimes that the stories and experiences with their classmates are so full of like inside jokes and these random incidents that it's almost like a shared language or shared experience
That's
uh, with
exactly
those particular people that can be hard to explain to people outside of it. And it does sound even like when you switched to a different school for a couple years in middle school, that maybe that was a little bit of the experience you were missing, right? Just kind of that closeness where you just are able to have that super deep close
yes.
connection with those people.
Yes. I mean, God, you nailed it on the head when you said like a shared language.
I did graduate from HBHA in the
I
class
mean,
of 2008.
okay, so fair enough. So you
Yeah,
have your own insight.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean that's what I was gonna say is just like so it's this mix of friends and family, right? Like my class felt like my brothers and sisters. I'd known them since kindergarten, most of them since kindergarten. And you know each other on like a cellular level. It's just you just understand those people like from such a basic level. You understand what makes them tick, what makes them mad, what they're good at, what they're not good at, weaknesses, strengths, all of it. Um, and like when I think about, that shared memory, I think about the teachers that we had in common, like Mrs. Ratanan is one example. Sivya Ratanan, do you remember her?
No. So one of the things I was going to say is you have this unique opportunity here because, a lot of the guests I've had on so far have been more recent graduates, and a lot of the teachers they've talked about when we're sharing reflections are teachers who are still here or teachers who a lot of people know. The teachers you're going to talk about here, I don't think there's any, I mean, we've had recently retired like Laura Hewitt and Marcia Cowan and Nancy Franks and Netta Crashen, who they might have been starting like right as you were graduating, but there are no teachers here now who were teaching when you were there.
Right.
I would love to hear about some of the teachers who had a big impact on you.
Oh my gosh.
I don't if there's one you name who I'm like, yeah, remember that teacher. The only person who might know them who was around back then was me. But I don't know Mrs. Ratanan. So what did she teach?
So Mrs. Ratanan taught, I mean, I think I had her all in elementary, maybe especially third grade. I remember third grade Hebrew. I mean, she's Israeli. Her husband also, Ezra Ra'anan, also taught at HBHA. They had two very hot older sons, Ehud and Barak. They were smoking hot. Okay. I mean, I'm in third grade and I had such a crush on them. Like, amazing. Mrs. Ra'anan would braid our hair, like make those like French braid crowns in all of the girls' hair on Shabbat, like on Fridays. She's every time I smell Chanel No. 5, I still think of Mrs. Ra'anan. Like she was just beautiful and adorable and smelled so good. So it's like her family, that family had like, it was just like, those are like formative memories. And then the Nagars, it's another, I don't know if you remember, if you had heard of the Nagars, but they were sort of like the same, vintage as the Ra'anans, like also an Israeli family, also had kids. Like I didn't know them as well as some other people, but other people could definitely talk about them. Everybody was like in love with them. They were like the nicest people. And then there was Mrs. Dickman, who
now I had.
Okay, you did. You had.
Oh, there we go.
She was so sweet, and I had her for fourth grade Hebrew. And I think she's back in Israel now. And then, did you ever have Mrs. Catch?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I did. For maybe like a fifth grade Jewish studies class of sorts, yes.
Fifth grade, and we, Lashon Hara Lamed Hey, go to hell the easy way. I mean, we still say that in my family. I could say that to anybody in my class, and they would know exactly what I was talking about. I think it was like Apples of Gold or something. It was like this book about being a good person and like not gossiping or something like that. She would put kids under her desk if they misbehaved.
Yeah, that I recall.
Yeah. And then like one time there was this girl, Jennifer Rock, in our class at the time, this is in fifth grade, was whispering something in Mrs. Catch's ear. And she kept giggling. She's like, "Why are you giggling?" And that's supposed to be Mrs. Catch.
I could tell that the voice had shifted, yes.
"Why are you giggling?" And Jenny said, "Your hair is tickling my nose." She said, "That's not my hair." Because she had on a wig and the wig would change like every day. It was so style. Yeah. It was so fantastic.
No, I remember having Mrs. Catch as a teacher as well. I can't say I carried all of those teaching practices over to my own teaching career, but no, those memories of what you're sharing there, I recall some of them. It sounds like a recurring pattern I'm hearing here is some of those teachers who you really remember and who stick out to you many years later are Hebrew and Jewish studies teachers you had when you were younger. So curious if you feel just like the experience of growing up in that, environment kind of shaped maybe your view on Judaism or your connection to Judaism just as you grew, if you're saying that those teachers had a big impact on you even when you were very young.
I mean, I don't know. I think maybe it's like those people stick out just because you have sort of like wilder memories about them, because maybe the teaching wasn't so traditional,
That makes sense.
It's maybe more like that because, when I think about like the teachers who had an impact on like more of like the way I think or my education. It's like I mentioned Phyllis Leff. Like she was a history teacher. She was so good. She was so hard. She made me work. She made everybody work really, really hard. I just took notes in her, like she was more of a lecturer.
You're just here
Connections,
frantically scribbling down notes for hours.
frantically trying to keep up and write down all the details. And I would rewrite my notes to study for her tests. It was like how I learned to really study effectively. And you had to do that to do well in her class. So she taught me how to like work hard and study. And then Mrs. Kagan, I
Oh,
bet you know Gloria
okay.
Kagan,
Now this is my prime, Mrs. Kagan.
HBHA legend.
HBHA, the most influential teacher on me, I would say. So what about so Mrs. Kagan? A lot of people listening will hopefully be familiar with Mrs. Kagan, as Gloria Kagan. She taught here for a long time, primarily middle and high school English, social studies, humanities. And even after she was semi-retired, she continued directing the middle school play for several years, even overlapping with my time teaching here. Now she is fully retired, which is well earned. And I'm curious, what were some of the what were you going to say about Mrs. Kagan and the impact she had on you, or just your experiences with her?
Yeah, I mean, I had her for sixth grade English, and I don't think I had her for anything else. I mean, at that point, like that's what she was doing. And I just remember that class. I remember diagramming sentences and that she carried a fork in her purse for personal protection, you know.
So when a potato will attack.
Yeah. And just that she was just a fantastic, loving teacher. And, you know, I mean that those are basically, she just made an impact because of her personality, her big personality, and just how caring she was. I also had Dr. Racer. Do you
Don't know
know who
Dr.
that
Razor.
is?
Don't know
She
Dr.
was such a good English teacher. She was a fantastic English teacher. And I think she taught at KU as well. And I don't think she was there for a really long time, and I don't remember her first name, but I think she made me a better writer. I remember the first paper I wrote for her, I think I got a C, and I was mortified. I was like, how did this happen?
How dare you, Dr. Razor?
This cannot be right. And so I went to talk to her about it and was like, I don't understand. And she explained it to me. And I was like, oh, I get it. And so you have to like, you know, in English, you have to like show your work. You can't just be like, this is a symbol. It's obvious, people.
Yeah, come on. Everyone knows.
You have to explain it. And
Yeah.
so she taught me how to write. So, you know, I mean, it's funny. It's like either the teachers at HBHA, and this is probably not true, but there are a couple who stick out because they were a little crazy.
Uh-huh.
And there are lots who stick out because they were just excellent teachers.
There you go. And they all have kind of coalesced into a big influential stew in your mind.
Right.
You mentioned briefly earlier the March of the Living.
Oh, yeah.
It's that, or one of the things that's awesome about HBHA is, you know, we do a lot of, you know, kind of significant milestone events, as I guess how I would classify it. Sometimes it's memorable field trips. Sometimes it's memorable things from lower school. I don't know if they had like the Chag Siddur and Chag Chumash when you were a kid, but I'm curious if there's any kind of significant moments or events that stick with you these years later where you're like, I really remember that and it had an impact on me for whatever reason.
Yeah. So I remember Chag Siddur and Chag Chumash. We didn't have like the different graduations back then. Want to hear a funny story from Chag Siddur?
Yeah, yes, Lara. That's why I'm here. I'm here for the
This
funny
is
stories. I'm here for you to name teachers from 30 years ago and to hear funny stories.
this
So,
is just about me. This is
oh,
only self-incriminating and
perfect.
ridiculous.
Well, I
And I
know a
can't,
lawyer if you need one after you.
right. So I can't remember if it was in kindergarten or first grade, but my mom made this beautiful Siddur cover. I mean, she needle points and she made this I still have it. It's beautiful. And on the front and the back, it had these little, or maybe just on the front, it had these little pearls in the corner, like pearl beads, just one. There were just four of them total. And I guess one fell off.
Oh no.
And I don't remember if this is during a practice or during like the Chag Siddur thing. But one fell off and I decided to stick it up my nose.
Oh no.
And I was like, and then you try and get it out, and I couldn't get it out. And I was like, you know, in my first-year-old brain, I was like, oh crap, oh something, whatever. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. But I did figure out that if I did this and just blew, and then it went skittering across the stage. So I blew it out of my nose. and then it skittered across the stage. And I don't think anybody ever saw, I don't think anybody else was aware of this happening, but I was mortified.
And you said you still have the Siddur cover.
I do.
So obviously the question is, does it have 3 beads, or has the nose bead returned to its rightful spot, or have all the beads fallen off over the years?
I I would be surprised if any beads still remain, but I will go find it when we're done, Micah, and I will send you a
Oh,
photo.
you know what? I have video editing skills. If you find that, take a picture of it, send it to me, and I'll put it on the video here while you're talking.
And are we videoed? Is this video?
There's a video and audio component of this. It's okay. The setup looks great. Everything's going perfectly. Yeah.
You might want to met. I could have. You should have told me that.
Oh, you know what? I apologize. But I think the visual dynamic is going perfectly so far.
Okay.
And you know, when you said that, it actually reminded me of a story. The only person who'll remember this who might be listening would be my mom. Would be when I was in 5th grade, we did a play called American Lore, which was basically a series of like short scenes that were funny, but they were about American history things. So there was like a segment about like Christopher Columbus and a segment about maybe George Washington and other things. And there was a part where my character had to like tie. I was wearing a cape, and so I don't know why, but I had a cape on, and I was trying to tie it on the stage, and I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't get it done.
Aww.
And my mom was sitting in the front row. I could see her like gesturing to me, and then she eventually like came up onto the stage and tied my cape. So that was my version of blowing a bead out of my nose during the Chag Siddur.
Cute.
I'm curious if you were involved with, aside from your rigorous academic studies that seems like you were a part of, with any kind of extracurricular components of HBHA, whether that was, I don't know if they had sounds like you know, obviously your career involves a lot of Englishy and writing things. I'm not sure if there was a student newspaper at the time, or a yearbook thing, or sports, or if you were mostly just focused on your studies. But I know for a lot of people that extracurricular component is a big part of their time at HBHA.
Yeah. And actually, it was a big reason I went to HBHA, because HBHA was able to be flexible with me. So I was a figure skater.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I can't believe you waited this long into the episode to drop this factoid.
I can't believe you didn't know this, and that wasn't just like I can't believe it, but I was like, oh, I guess Micah doesn't know about this, and he just happened upon something big. I was a figure skater growing up. So I was a competitive figure skater, and I would skate before school. So I would skate for 2 hours, Monday through Friday before school, and I would miss prayers every day. Oh, and in fact, I think I even missed either part of or all of first hour too.
It's a lot of skating.
And then it's a lot of skating. I mean, there were times where I was waking up. I think most of the time I woke up at like 5 a.m. and I would skate from 6 to 8 and then get to school around 8:30.
So did you go to like local competitions that you were? Okay. Yeah.
Local regional competitions. And I did it from when I was 10 and all the way through senior year. And then after high school, I decided to stop. I didn't do it in college.
Well, I know that your boys, Harry and Reese, I believe, play hockey, right? And I see where the gene came from.
Well, and I have to credit Ben with that. He's from Minnesota and played ice hockey.
Okay, so you guys have got a whole skating family thing going on over here.
We like icy sports.
That's kind of a bit of a niche sport to get into, and it's very like an individual activity. You know, most people you're playing soccer, basketball, maybe dance. How did you get into figure skating in the first place?
I saw the 1988 Calgary Olympics.
Okay.
And Katarina Witt and particularly Debbie Thomas, who I thought I was like amazed. And I fell in love, and I thought I can do that. That's what I thought in my head. I can do that. And you know what? I wasn't wrong. I was pretty good from the beginning. I think because I skied and it's the same balance mechanism.
Uh-huh.
And so I did it. I started, and I was like pretty good from the beginning. So
yeah, the Olympians when I was growing up that I watched were Tara Lipinski and Michelle Kwan. Okay. When I hear figure skating, that's who jumps to my head. And Sarah Hughes. Right? I think it was Sarah. Yeah. And so those are the ones that I remember watching growing up.
Michelle Kwan is like my all-time favorite.
She was incredible.
Incredible.
Some have called you the Michelle Kwan of HBH.
Right? They would not be wrong.
Do you still skate?
No.
Oh, well, you never know. I wonder. I'm sure once if you lace the skates back up, that it's still there. Did you?
Every once in a while, the skates get laced back up, and for as long as I can tolerate the pain, because
Yeah.
now my skates are very, very painful. I probably should just get another pair of skates.
Well, what would you say is the most impressive figure skating move that you were ever able to build yourself up to?
Like that I ever landed or
Yeah,
like
yeah,
consistently.
or attempted. It doesn't have to be a, no one has the video unless you've
I
got a
mean,
video. In which case,
right? Yeah. Is
wait,
anybody gonna
if
fact
you've
check
got a
this?
figure skating video, send it my way, and I will make sure to get this up here.
They are safely locked away on VHS.
Oh my goodness! Just send the VHS tape, and I'll copy it and distribute it.
Do you
Yeah.
know how to do that?
Absolutely not. There's
Oh, okay.
absolutely
I
no
was like,
chance,
actually, I need
absolutely
help
no
with that.
chance of doing that. And also, anyone who is under the age of 25 who's listening to this has no idea what you're talking about, which is also
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a thing
Sorry,
for
kids.
the time of not knowing what VHS tapes are.
Yeah.
Uh,
I could do so I could to answer your question, there was a time when I could do a double axel and there was a time when I could do a triple sow.
oh my,
But
that's the most impressive thing I hear the announcers say.
yes. It's the easiest of the triples, just so you know. And then I'm sure I attempted other triples. I didn't ever there was at some point and it was like junior or senior year where I was like, yeah, this is not happening for me. The
Yeah,
triples. Like I just don't have quick enough fast twitch muscles, I think was the issue. Although they didn't put it in those terms back then, but I was just like, I don't know this is happening to me. For me, I'm gonna focus on this other stuff and get it was called, getting your gold medal. It was like passing the levels, and I got my gold medal and said, peace out. That's enough for me.
that is very cool. No, I did not know about your
Yeah.
extensive legacy as a figure skating champion. But now,
That's a bit extreme, but yeah. But I skated a lot, had a great group of friends at skating, and it was a big part of my life.
where did you skate? Is the rink still around?
King Louis. No,
Oh,
it's not.
I know King Louis at 80, like 87th and Metcalf,
That's
90.
exactly right.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Now it's the Johnson County
Heritage
Heritage Center, which
Museum
is
or
also really
something.
cool. But it used to be a bowling alley and skating rink. It's very close to where I grew up. I grew up on 95th and Mall. And so
Yeah.
uh that's the bowling alley. I got pretty into bowling in high school with some friends, and we joined a
Nice.
bowling league. We were the worst ones in the league because we were just high schoolers in a bowling league with no experience. But we because of the handicap that somehow we got because of our poor scores, we ended up like beating teams even though we were far below them. But I did once bowl I think it was a 236, which is
Wow.
236, which was one of the highlights of my career. That's my version of your figure skating prowess.
That's your version of my, double axel.
I had 6 strikes in a row at one point. It was like it was great.
Micah,
I know.
my
I can
God.
get corroboration from my classmates. They can chime in the comments and say this is correct. They were there.
That's amazing.
It was
I've
it,
never, man,
it was
I
really
break
cool.
100 and I'm happy in bowling. I'm
I
not
know.
great at bowling.
The one aspect of kind of your HBHA experience we haven't talked about is also now your role as a parent, right? So
Yeah.
you're an HBHA parent, and I've had, as I mentioned at the top, the joy of teaching the various PAP children in different classes over the years. But that's interesting. Being a student for a long time, and then taking a break for a while to pursue all of your career and also have the family.
Yeah.
Um, but now, looking at it from the flip side as an HBHA parent, I'm curious just kind of what that experience has been like for you, and also if there's any interesting changes or growth that you've seen in HBHA. Obviously, just like societally, things have changed. There's a lot more use of computers, technology, things like that than in the grand heyday of the mid 90s. But just what has that perspective been like for you as a parent watching your children grow up at HBHA?
That's a really good question. So I think what I'm just struck by at HBHA and the reason why we love it so much is just how it feels like the teachers know my kids. They know my kids, they've watched them grow up, even if they hadn't had them in class. It's a small enough school where, you see the kindergartners, Micah, you see these little kids before they get to you. Um, and and so the teachers just really seem to know my kids on a level that I don't think that they would experience at any other school.
I can tell you definitively that you are correct.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of stories from these kids over the days, and I know them pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's just, the small class sizes and just like the intimate feel of the school, the intimate nature of the school. It's not just a feel, it's the way it is.
Yeah.
It just leads to teachers really understanding my kids and understanding what they need. I think if they're struggling, what they need to help them, and if things are too easy, how can we challenge them more? And so it's just this really individualized attention that we love, and also just it's attention not only on what they're learning, but also the kind of people that they're becoming. And Ben and I really like that, the focus of the school, that is talked about so much, and it's not just talked about, but it's acted out in the way that HBHA kids and teachers spend their time, and what's discussed. So we really like that. And frankly, I really like the social justice sort of focus of the high school.
Mm-hmm.
And that was always kind of something that was in the back of our heads as we decided to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Was, well, I want my kids to go to high school here because I think that, the civil rights trip is such a cool, different experience, and the heritage trip is such an important trip that, it was a big reason why we decided to have our kids stay. And just like, so it doesn't sound misleading, Harry did leave this year. And so Harry goes to Blue Valley North, and we've been very happy with that too. It's an excellent school, and he's happier. He just wanted a bigger school. He's a social kid. He wanted more people. But it's just, that's why we wanted our kids to stay, and why the other two are still there.
Yeah,
So,
that makes perfect sense. And it is a big part of the high school, not just the 2 weeks of those trips themselves,
right.
but it permeates so much of the curriculum and the focus and a lot of the work we do.
And not only that, but the community service requirements and the different incentives for more community service. I mean, we really, that to me is just, you're creating a whole person, not just a little pre-college, machine.
Yeah. I think that's well said. We are definitely aiming not to create. I don't think our mission statement says we are aiming to create pre-college machines.
Yeah. Although it could.
It could.
Should I work on that on the board?
The board maybe that could be something they take up in the next meeting. Do we want to incorporate pre-college machines?
Yeah.
Into the verbiage there. We've covered, everything from HBHA to your days today. Before I let you go, I always like to ask a few rapid fire questions. So that are kind of random and scattershot. So feel free to answer these in as much depth or as briefly as you would like. I have inside information from a child of yours, Lara Pabst, one of my students, that you guys went on a pretty cool family trip this past summer. What would you say was the highlight from that family trip?
So we went to Paris for 4 days, and then we went to Greece for 6 days. In Greece, we were in Athens for 2 days, and Paros, which is an island, for 4 days.
Had you ever been to Greece or Paris before?
I had been to Paris. I've been to Paris before this trip. I had been to Paris a couple times, and Ben I had been with Ben, but our kids hadn't been anywhere in Europe. They so this was the first time in Europe for them. What's a highlight? I think a highlight was Athens. We loved Athens. All of us loved Athens. I had heard kind of negative things, actually, like, oh, it's so hot, it's so crowded, blah, blah, blah.
It was the Spartans were spreading the propaganda about Athens.
I love it. That's awesome. We just loved it. It was old and beautiful, and you could just feel the age and in a cool way, and the history. Harry is very into Greek mythology, and was like Nora and Reese at some point were we're ready to leave when we were up at the Acropolis, and Harry was still into it and reading everything, and it was just fun to see him get so into something like that and be just genuinely really interested in this this thing that maybe some kids are a little bored by eventually.
This is where Percy Jackson all began.
I know it,
Huh.
and I mean, do you know this about Harry? That
I know that he was a big Percy Jackson reader, or
yeah,
may still be a big Percy Jackson reader. There's a lot of those books.
yeah. I mean, he might, for nostalgic purposes, pull
Yeah.
one out every once in a while and just kind of dive back in. But he had like a necklace, like the trident necklace,
Uh-huh.
and like I mean, he was into it. So, yeah, exactly. So he was, and he's read other books about Greek mythology. I think we just all really, I think Athens was a big highlight, and it looks like Israel. To me, the colors and the feel of it sort of
Oh,
felt
they're
like
both very
Israel.
old historic places, right? Where there's so like literally thousands of years of history that are
And
still
yes,
part of the geography of the place.
exactly. And like it was like the same types of stones used for the ancient buildings and olive trees everywhere. And it just, they're on the same like line of latitude. And so like very similar, I imagine very similar agriculture and weather. And so I almost felt like very at home, even though I haven't spent that much time in Israel. I've been 4 times, but I haven't been since high school.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a long time, but it did feel from the very beginning, like on the drive from the airport, I just remember feeling like, oh, this feels familiar and it looks like Israel. And that I think just like added to the experience for me personally.
Very
So
cool. You
yeah.
mentioned that you were interested in art history.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, do you have a favorite artist or favorite like genre or style or period of art that
Impressionism, just in general impressionism. And I think that comes from my mom. My mom,
did you hit up any of the great museums in Paris while you were there?
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but the funny thing is we only went to the Louvre and they don't have any of that. And I'm not as into the old stuff.
Okay, so it was you. You did that Louvre heist that happened a little while ago. It was
Oh, ugh.
oh you were
I don't want to talk about it on the podcast.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's even more incriminating than the bead up the nose.
Yeah.
Uh,
Right. But I've been to the other ones. I've been to the other L'Orangerie and d'Orsay, and those
I
are
had my honeymoon
fantastic.
in Paris along with a couple other European cities, and we went to all three of those, the Louvre,
Yeah.
d'Orsay, and Orangerie, and they were all just incredible.
Incredible.
You're
Right.
right. For people who haven't been, people when they hear famous museum in Paris, they probably think the Louvre, which is amazing, but it has a lot more like it's more like
Ancient.
a museum as opposed to an art gallery as much. Like
Yeah.
there are art pieces there, obviously. But if you love art, like and you want to see paintings and a lot of famous paintings, and you're in Paris, those other two are the ones to go to because it's just like mind-boggling how many
Yeah.
pieces are there.
Oh, it's just amazing. And particularly the Orsay, if you want to see a lot of different things. I mean, L'Orangerie is just Monet's water lilies. So
Mm-hmm.
that's like sort of niche, but the Orsay is incredible. And we just didn't because I mean, frankly, Reese does not like art museums. We had to pick and choose.
Gotcha. You gotta make sure the family's engaged during the trip.
Exactly, exactly. And I wish we had gone to one of those too. I think Nora in particular would have really loved it. So I sort of regret that we didn't, but what are you gonna do? Can't do everything.
All right, I'm gonna let you go with this one last one. This is a good question. I'm proud of this. I hope you'll have a good answer for this.
Okay, and after I answer this, I have one question for you, but you go first.
Oh wow. Okay, turning the table
Yeah.
like that. So you graduated in 1997. The 90s are, as we both know, the best decade. I was born in 1991, so I was like a 90s kid, right? When I was younger, you're a little older than I am. So I got to ask you, the 90s though has, in my opinion, it's got all the best toys and fads and games and styles and
Oh,
movies, all that stuff. What is your favorite 90s thing? Whether it could be a clothing style, a hairstyle, a trend, a
okay.
thing,
Yeah.
anything you want. What's your favorite 90s thing as a 90s kid
The
yourself?
November Rain music video.
Okay. Maybe I don't know if I have the licensing to I don't know it off the top of my head. What is I know the song November Rain, but what is
Yeah.
what jumps out at you? But why is
It's
that the
like
90s to you?
it's like this epic video. And maybe I should have said like Wayne's World, because
Oh, there
that's
we go.
also a really good 90s reference. But like this was like formative for me, I think. And it was in I want to say like seventh or eighth grade, or like it was a summer in between I think between seventh and eighth grade. And I watched a lot of MTV.
There we go.
Um,
This is very
and
90s
this
now.
Yeah, yeah, and music videos in general, right? Because now MTV just has like like road rules or whatever stupid
I don't know what we're
programming.
doing now.
This was the music video era, and this particular video is a really long song, and it was like it was this theatrical thing, and then I can't remember even what the video is like, what it's about, but at the end, it's a bouquet of roses sitting on top of a coffin, and it's red, and the color eventually fades out and they turn white. And I don't know why, like it's like that ridiculous drama. And as my eighth grade year old, soul loved it. I just thought it was so cool.
Perfect answer. Perfect answer. I thought you were gonna say Chia Pets. But
No.
no. Wayne's World and November Rain music video. That's
Yeah.
a great way
Wait, can I
to
say one more thing?
you can say multiple more things.
Because of Wayne's World, it was a resurgence, I think, of Bohemian Rhapsody,
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And
which
back to the
I
top.
skated to. Thank you very much.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
very good. I should have asked you what were the best songs to skate to. Did you, so when you skated, did you choreograph like the routine or did you have like a coach that choreographed it for you?
Coach would choreograph it, and I would help. Like, especially as I was older, I'd be like, well, what if we did this? But mostly your coach would choreograph it and you'd figure out what works with the music. And I really loved like picking the music, and my parents were very into picking the music. They're like music nerds. And
Mhm.
so we would cut our own music, and I would typically pick my own music. And some kids, the coach picks the music for them, but not me.
Well, the cool thing about Bohemian Rhapsody for skating is it starts out very soft and quiet
Yeah,
and slow, and so it can be kind of languid in the dancing and the skating, and then it really
exactly.
picks up into like a powerful rock ballad. So
You got it.
I can picture it in my mind, even if I don't have the VHS tape in front of me.
You got it. And that's exactly right. It was awesome.
Lara, that's all I had for you, but you said you had a question for me.
I do have a question for you.
Okay.
Who's going to interview you?
Wow, what a good question. Um, I think there's a possible I don't want to spoil it because I need to I've been in talks with a person who I asked to be a guest on the show, and their retort was, "I'll be a guest, but I'm going to interview you." And I said, "I'd rather hear your stories." So that is possible. That is coming. I think a lot of my stories have seeped out throughout the various episodes I've done, but I guess if they want a full blast of Margolese tales, of which I have many, I can share them. I've got them.
Yeah. I mean, I think that just has to happen eventually.
I
So
I think there will be one in the works where
cool.
my own podcast featuring me, which uh, will hopefully not be too much me in one episode.
Well, if you need help talking to more old people like me, let
Oh,
me
you're not
know.
old. You're from the '90s. That was 5 years ago.
Well, okay, not old, but older.
Okay,
My vintage, like,
vintage. There we go.
yeah,
A
yeah.
vintage musician.
Because am I the oldest person you've had on so far?
So far, but I have some plans that are in the works to talk to some other people from a similar vintage as yourself.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Lara, this has been wonderful. Got to hear all sorts of stories about what you're up to today, about what you were up to 30 years ago. I loved hearing about the different teachers, some of
Yeah.
whom I had, but some of whom I never heard of. And I'll never forget the bead coming out of your nose during the Chag Siddur. So thank
I'll
you for
send you
joining.
that photo.
Please do. Bye bye.
Thanks, Micah. Bye.